Hey guys, thanks for joining me for another look at mental health in the movies. This is a channel that talks about what Hollywood gets right and wrong, helps you to see yourself and other people in your life, and to learn what to look for in a great therapist and to know what healthy looks like. So think about this. If all you see in life is unhealthy people, that becomes your template for normal. And normal means average, right? Movies often sensationalize human stories and skew reality, so it's all good to know. And today we're looking at The Last Showgirl, which stars Pamela Anderson and Jamie Lee Curtis. And this movie is from 2024. It got 26 award nominations and 7 wins, including a Razzie for Pamela Anderson. So this film got lots of attention. But is it a realistic look at emotionally complex humans? As always, this video includes spoilers, so if you want to be surprised, watch the movie first, then come back and watch this video. All right, so the plot. The story is about a 57-year-old showgirl whose only goal in life is not only to be on stage, but to be part of Le Razzle Dazzle. And Shelly, played by Anderson, has been with the show for 30-ish years, and the show audience are getting smaller and smaller. Her paycheck gets smaller and smaller. She has no savings or retirement plan when she finds out the show's being canceled. Her friend of similar age was fired 6 years ago from the show, probably because she's an alcoholic and a gambler, and now she works as a cocktail waitress. But she's also facing financial pressure because the younger waitresses are being given hours over her. So Shelly might see this as her future, but she refuses to even contemplate being anything but a razzle dazzle girl because she lives for the stage. She wants to be seen as beautiful, and this is the way that she accomplishes that. Shelly doesn't really have any other life. She married young, but that fell apart because her husband didn't like the Vegas lifestyle and she didn't want to leave it. And we learn that Shelly has a daughter that she didn't rear. She didn't make enough money for a babysitter and didn't want to take a job where she would work when her daughter was at school. So this part's not very clear, but it seems that her daughter's friend's mother allowed Hannah to stay with them. So her friend's mom ended up being a mom to her. And Shelly would go a year without seeing her daughter, and Hannah didn't know who her dad was. So it turns out a coworker of Shelly's that Shelly wasn't in a relationship with at the time that they conceived. Dad didn't fight for custody of the daughter either. Dad has no relationship with her. Hannah's now 22 and is on the cusp of graduating from college. She's studying photography, which she loves, but she's unsure about whether she can support herself doing that. Mom encourages her to follow her dreams because that's what she's done. Hannah's never seen what Shelly does, so she stays for the show and sees a dingy, seedy, half-naked show with barely any audience and says, "This is what has been more important than me." Naturally, Shelly gets upset. Bad timing, though, because one of the young girls who she works with shows up looking for Shelly to be a mom to her, which she feels like Shelly has been her second mom. And this young girl left home to become a showgirl, and it's implied that she called home to see if she could come back after the show closes and was told no. And she needs a shoulder to cry on, but Shelly can't be bothered. Shelly goes on an audition for another dance job and is told no thanks. And when she pushes for an answer why, she's told that she's old fashioned, her style. She can't dance and she's too old. The last show arrives. The daughter and the daughter's father is in the audience watching, and that's pretty much the movie. So it's a little more dramatic. Definitely lots of shiny, glitteries, pretty things. But that's pretty much the plot. So what's up with Shelly? We have to read in between the lines on this one because the movie is really sparse on dialogue and backstory. Some people might see Shelly as driven, committed to her dream, uncaring of others, and selfish. Some might judge her and see her morally as morally degenerate for abandoning her child and having a relationship with a guy she wasn't committed to. The show's really not about judging. It's really kind of matter of fact. This is what happened. This show isn't really about judging. It's about understanding and creating a sense of compassion. At least I hope so. So any labels are for communicating with professionals about what you think is wrong. And if you start with the right label, your chances of getting the help that you need increases. So many people say that they're depressed or anxious when they really have trauma. Or people think that there's nothing wrong with them because their struggles are struggles that everyone around them is having. So they think it's just normal or just, this is just how life rolls. Now, Shelly's best friend is in a similar boat to her, and this is just how people in her business live. So she may not feel that she has a problem and doesn't see a reason to get help. So let's put this into perspective. Not to pathologize or label, but to understand. Cool. All right. If Shelly came into my office and gave me only the details that the movie provided, I would guess she's either suffering from borderline personality disorder or chronic post traumatic stress disorder or both. If it's not one of these, then she certainly has traits of both of them. Borderline is a cluster B personality disorder. Personality disorders are unusual ways of thinking about oneself and relating to others. So they're just kind of abnormal or not typical, not the healthiest ways of thinking or behaving. That's all that means. People with cluster B traits tend to have big, inappropriate, and unpredictable emotions. So if you see somebody dramatic, like in the movies, when you see people that are having mental health disorders, they're cluster B because it's visible. And these big emotions are deeply ingrained and not one off responses or short term responses. So they're habitual ways of being. They're ways of surviving that are acquired very young. Shelly had big emotions when the young coworker came to her door looking for sympathy. She had big emotions when she was turned down off the audition. These are both reasonable considering the circumstances because they happen in context of something. She's not just being dramatic for no reason. So, in that case, we can't look at those as evidence of having big emotions. We have to see the whole picture. So, let's go through the criteria. You have to have 5 of these 9 to be diagnosed with borderline personality disorder. And I've said this before and I'll say it again. I believe that a diagnosis of BPD is a good thing because you can learn your way out of this. Some mental disorders, you got it, you got it. This one is really up to you if you want to keep it. So these are behaviors and ways of thinking. And if you learn healthier skills to deal with the stress, the deeply ingrained way that you learn to survive can be replaced with healthier habits. And then you don't have the diagnosis anymore. So the first one of these is frantic efforts to avoid real or imagined abandonment. If this is you, you may not see it. But Shelly has had only one lasting relationship, and that was her short marriage. That alone could be a huge indicator that she avoids abandonment by not getting involved in the first place. She may dump you before you can dump her. Maybe this is why she and her daughter's father never had a relationship. And she clearly loves her daughter, but this could be why she let her daughter go so easily. And of course, they're the 2 young coworkers. She takes a motherly role with them, but the minute that one of them actually needs real nurturing, she turns her back on her and says, I can't deal with you right now. I think this is most of us. If we were in the young girl's shoes, we'd be pretty angry, hurt, and take it personally. We might say, you're selfish, you never cared for me. But when someone doesn't have it to give, it's not personal. It's not about you. It just is what it is. And Shelly comes across as sweet and kind, but I don't think she's a full-fledged grown-up, not inside, not really. She's always rushing to get on stage on time. She needs someone to zip her up and tie her in because she's just really not that good at taking care of herself. And this is a sign of developmental trauma. Quite often we see adults who appear to be really together. They make their own breakfast at 6. They do their own laundry. They get themselves off to school. And that's great. But if they do it because they have nobody doing it for them, or perhaps doing it consistently for them, that's a different thing. That's not an old soul or super responsible child. That's a parentified child. This kid is parenting herself or himself because he has to. The role of parent has been abandoned. And if he doesn't do these types of things, he doesn't eat. And he may not just do this for himself, he may have to do it for his siblings and his parent too. Looks responsible on the outside, but the child's emotional development is often stunted because we can only grow emotionally when we feel safe, and this kid doesn't feel safe. So emotions aren't safe to feel. And what does that look like? Well, it can look like Shelly being kind and motherly to these girls, and yet she needs them to get her on stage on time. And when they really need emotional support, she doesn't have it to give, not because she's selfish, but because she's never been nurtured and really doesn't know how. Or it could be too scary for her to go there for someone else when she has to hold down the fort for them to have a cry, you know? The second criteria for borderline is having unstable and intense relationships. We call this the I hate you, don't leave me cycle, or extreme idealization and devaluation. It starts off like you're the greatest thing since sliced bread. It's a whirlwind romance. And then the partner becomes the devil. But if the partner shows signs of leaving, the person with borderline can't let that happen because it feels like abandonment. And it's confusing as heck for the other person. So there's lots of walking on eggshells, love bombing, big fights, don't leave, that kind of stuff. Now, this can happen with teenagers too, who are just figuring out love. But if it persists into adulthood, there might be more going on. And Shelly does this. She falls hard and fast because of the guy in the very beginning of the movie who she was supposed to make fish for, who never shows up. And the third criterion is identity disturbance. This means you don't know who you are or your self-perception is unstable. So I'm a different person around different people, that kind of thing. Chameleon is another way of putting that. Shelly shows this might be possible with her because her identity is so linked to being a razzle-dazzle girl. She can't contemplate anything but that. She can't see herself honestly as an aging woman with a life off the stage where people aren't admiring her for her body and her beauty. And without the show, she has no identity. So is she impulsive? That's the fourth criterion. She isn't a substance abuser, reckless driver, binge eater, gambler, spender, or cutter, but she could meet this one if her sexual choices are impulsive, and looks like they might be. She had sex with her daughter's father when they were not in a relationship and could have done that again. So I would say 1 through 3 are a definite yes, and 4 is a probable yes. So 5 is recurrent suicidal behavior or self-harming. So we see no evidence of that. This is very often a dead giveaway for people with borderline personality disorder. Most of my clients who cut, scratch, or pick at themselves until it hurts, who hit themselves or bang their head, either have borderline personality disorder or trauma or both. Okay, 6 is moodiness. Lots of people think they're bipolar because they're moody. With borderline, the moods are quick and short. With bipolar, the moods are 2 weeks or longer and may not have any noticeable triggers. With BPD, there is usually an identified trigger. So Shelly is moody, but she isn't very demonstrative. Her moods are on the inside. It's happening on the inside. She doesn't let them show. And this is something to look out for because people who feel the moods on the inside, they're still moody, just not as easy to see it. And so she's not breaking up furniture, cursing people out, but she is moody. So she's already met criteria for borderline personality disorder, but let's finish the list. Does she have chronic feelings of emptiness? If she only feels alive when she's on stage and people admiring her, I'd say yeah. We all need a sense that we have a value apart from what we do or what we look like in order to feel full. If you need constant adoration, you'll feel depressed, empty, and lonely if people aren't laughing at you, praising your beauty, or talking about all the wonderful things you're doing. You are amazing simply because you exist. And part of your role in living is to figure that out. Most of us start doing that when we're really, really young. If you grow up in a healthy household, you're just taught that from a young age. So a lot of people will figure that out by doing this incredible thing, by being as beautiful as they can, being a good person. And then life goes on and we realize that doesn't really work. So we have to search elsewhere. And if we're lucky, we stumble upon it. But if you grow up connected, loved, and feel a sense of belonging, then you never lost it. If you have lost it, that's quite likely where you can find it by being vulnerable, opening your heart, sharing your tender inside with someone who's trustworthy, and letting them see you. So number 8 is intense anger, and we don't see that at all in Shelly. She gets angry, but it's not anything remarkable. It's normal, healthy anger. And the last one is stress-related paranoid ideation. She's not paranoid, but she has 5 or 6 of these symptoms. So I would say she qualifies for borderline personality disorder. So how might she have gotten that? Well, we really don't know for sure. It's not a black and white thing. But one thing is that most people with BPD uh, grew up in an invalidating environment. Another way of saying that is that they grew up feeling unsupported, unseen, unloved, not good enough, not capable, or small. Or maybe they were praised sometimes and then not other times, or praised for one thing and then criticized for that very same thing. Those kinds of things are invalidating. And we understand this easily when the child's parents are sexually assaulting them, hitting them, yelling at them, or calling them names. Those are kind of extreme forms of invalidation. But to really understand this, you have to put yourself in the mind of a small child. Really get down to their size and imagine how much bigger an adult is. So, do you remember being in kindergarten? I do. I remember walking to school and crossing the street if anyone who was like in the third grade or older was coming in my direction because they were the big kids and big kids scared me. And I also remember being in third grade and going to an open house. And I don't know why I went into the kindergarten room, but I went in there and it smelled of paste. And the chairs were so tiny. And that gave me perspective on how much I had grown and how little I used to be. So now imagine what it feels like to have an adult saying invalidating things to you when you're that small. How terrorizing it might feel to have your parents or a grown up saying things that you interpret to mean that you're not good enough, you're stupid, or you're not pretty or athletic. At any age, that can strike the fear of abandonment in someone's heart. But the younger you are, the more life and death that feels. And when you're that little, you don't have a history of success behind you yet to fall back on that says, I have gone through being chased by a dog, riding a tricycle, falling down, scraping my knees, and holding my own with a neighborhood bully, and I can handle this thing in front of me. So it's important to try, fail, succeed, and be seen to be succeeding so that we not only know that we're capable, but others recognize it too and accord us the status that we believe we have earned. So if I think that I'm big enough to walk to school by myself and my parents don't, who's right? They are. Every time it comes up, they're going to treat me as incapable and I'll fall in line. If your parents give you gas money as an adult when you visit them for Christmas, this is exactly what's being communicated. So think outside the box. Everything isn't spelled out in black and white. If you're looking at Shelly as a stupid person or a poor white trash person with low ambitions, you're not seeing the big picture. She has a history. We all have a history, and we all make invalidating comments. And if someone says, gee, your dog died 2 months ago, at some point you're just going to have to get over it. That's invalidating where you are. You feel what you feel, and it takes as long as it takes. Grief doesn't have to stay forever. There are things that you can do to help move it along. And that won't mean that you've stopped caring. Regardless of whether it's been a year or 10 years, it takes as long as it takes. So are you really going to eat that? Or is that what you're wearing can be perceived as invalidating? The speaker has some judgment baked into those comments, doesn't she? It's like she's saying you're doing something wrong, and that can make someone feel insecure. Things like, there you go being dramatic again, or I didn't think you had a chance of getting that job, are not just inconsiderate. They violate boundaries by saying things that you have no right to comment on. And they make you superior because you're judging someone else and putting them down. And people feel that. I was recently in a position where I was getting at least one comment like this a day for several days. It's just little things, but it was so annoying. And I know that the other person was communicating their anxiety by trying to make decisions for me and trying to control my behavior so that it would be in alignment with what they would do in my situation, but it was none of their business. There can only be one boss at a time. And if you're not the boss, any help you offer is getting in the way of the true boss being effective at their job. All you have to do is mind your own business. And if the boss doesn't have the expertise to do the job, let him fail. Failing is a way of getting closer to succeeding because you're getting feedback that says, hey, this doesn't work, try something else. So ultimately, this is about trust. The person doing the invalidating doesn't trust, and they're putting it off on the subject of the invalidation. And the subject is expected to hold it all together. So if this is you, your job is to see all the things I just said, and I'll repeat all this in a minute, and then put things back in balance. So I'm going to repeat what it is you have to do so that it's clear. So first is notice the invalidation is happening. 2, determine who's the boss here. 3, if you are in charge, take charge by saying something like, I got this. I realize it's hard for you to see me in emotional distress or as self sufficient, as an adult, or whatever it is, but I can take care of this in my own way. If you have a relationship where you can say something like, I don't know how your comment sounded to you, but it landed as judgy to me. Is that what you meant? You could say something like that. So you put it back on them so they can hear their words the way you do. Next, if you are not in charge, do things their way and don't take it personally. It's not about you. Let the boss be the boss. And 5 is keep your heart open. Don't close down and maintain trust if the person is trustworthy. So is that going to heal borderline personality? No. But it's a start. And as I said before, the root of this is invalidation. We can all learn skills to know when we are engaging in invalidation and when it's directed at us and do something different. If you have a DBT skills group near you, that's what I would recommend because it was developed specifically for people with BPD. If there isn't a group near you, there are workbooks where you can teach yourself. There is a playlist on my YouTube channel for DBT skills as well. So anybody can outgrow borderline personality disorder. Now, the other part of Shelly's issue or borderline personality disorder is the trauma. There are lots of triggers related to shame of being invalidated that won't heal by using better skills, and you need trauma therapy for that. So let's say that Shelly's next move is to go to therapy. Not likely, but she's out of a job. She's told she's too old to continue working in her field, and she has no way to get the validation that she gets from being on stage. And all those things would be her presenting problem. That's what she's coming in for. And all of that needs to be dealt with to start off with. Lots of people stop there. So let's say that Shelly gets a job cocktailing to pay the bills and does shows at senior centers for praise on the weekends. Okay, cool. So she's now got enough money to support herself and she can still be in front of an audience. Now she's good. She could say thank you and goodbye. A long-term goal might be to gain emotional regulation skills, to not have the big emotions, not run away from intimacy and real relationships so she can have the genuine and deep connection that'll make her feel a sense of worth and belonging that she's trying to get from being on stage. That'd be a good move, right? Another long-term goal could be to gain mental flexibility to deal with the changes that life brings, not only from aging, but day to day. The nature of life is that it's always changing. So we all need to do that. If you have one vision and one path, eventually you're going to be off target because you don't pivot ever. So if the underlying personality disorder and trauma are not addressed, Shelly's going to eventually cycle back into unhappiness. This is just how it goes. She keeps things on the surface and she needs to go deep. She hasn't seen her daughter in a year. Her daughter calls her by her first name. All that has to hurt. And Shelly acts like it's nothing. This is what I'm talking about. She probably has some grief around the loss of her marriage, her child, and the job and her dream. And that needs to be felt and processed. She has to face life as it is and stop denying that she's 57 and an occupation meant for 20-year-olds. She might have some depression related to fearing becoming obsolete. There's lots of potential for growth here. We have to get honest and deal with our baggage. If she does that, there's no reason why she can't have meaningful, significant, deep, long-term relationships that are mutually satisfying. She can have a stable job that she enjoys and gives her a sense of accomplishment. She can be happy. I saw some of the reviews for this movie, and a lot of people saw this as a woman's issue that focuses on fading beauty and identity. I didn't see it as a woman's issue because I don't see a woman's value as being tied to her body, beauty, or fertility. But if you do, check it out from that angle. I think there's a lot of what I said about invalidation and trauma is still going to be helpful. I always hope to end on a positive note and see the character's strengths because we all have them. And we could poke holes in anybody's character and make them look pathological. But let's see what makes Shelly a beautiful human being. So first, she's a survivor. I've worked in the entertainment industry and it's hard to make it and harder to stay there. She's been there for 30 years. Her endurance shows dedication, stamina, hope, grit, and a refusal to give up. When she demanded answers in her audition, she showed it then as well. So, bravo to her. Second, people are drawn to her. She had a stage presence to be the face of the ad and the centerpiece in the finale. She held the star position for 11 years and was seen as a mother figure, so it shows that people like her. She has charisma and warmth. She might not be able to sustain it off stage, and many people with BPD can't, but they definitely have it. When they shine, they shine. Shelly is also an incredible optimist. She encouraged her daughter to follow her dream. She refused to accept the end of her career. She went on an audition as a dancer. Having possibilities can keep us from going into despair, and hope and optimism is a great thing to cling to. So, another strength is that Shelly is devoted. Her devotion is to the stage, her only real partner and love ever. She probably didn't have the love and care of a steady parental figure or partner, so she didn't trust people. But she was devoted to the show. The spotlight gave her identity, consistency, adoration, and purpose. We might all have these quirks that might not be viewed as strengths that can be repurposed and tweaked to work for us in different ways. If I were working with her, I'd use that love and devotion to the stage to motivate her and give something to hold on to and shift into a more functional and stable way of being. I think this might be a controversial take on The Last Showgirl. So tell me what you see. What are Shelly's strengths and weaknesses? And to be fair to Shelly, her life is only a problem if she thinks it is. So I've been really picky for the purposes of uh, the whole idea of the show, which is mental health in the movies. She certainly didn't ever say in the movie, "My life isn't working the way that it is." So I don't think that I'd be seeing her in counseling. But then I always think that we have room for growth. So that's more about me than her. So thank you all for watching. Don't forget to hit that like button on your way out. Thank you for being here. Ciao.